With that, I would like to make a transition to our next speaker. Dr. Maarten van Dongen is with us. We are slightly behind schedule. That's why I would very briefly introduce him, and I would ask him to also say a couple of words about himself and the AMR Insights initiative that he's created and he is managing in a number of countries. I would just say that we are pleased to have him here because his experience, I believe, allows him to bridge different perspectives. One of the pharma sector that he has advised for many years, and also the one of policymakers. And I believe that this has given him the opportunity to strategize and to create the AMR Insights. And I think that after we had a number of speakers earlier today that gave us an understanding what antimicrobial resistance actually is. We will now move both in the area of policy making, but also deeper responses. So with that, I would like to pass Maarten the floor, and just a small logistics reminder, Maarten, if we can squeeze a couple of minutes from this planned half an hour, it will be much appreciated, but no worries if we cannot. Over to you, and thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me first start sharing my screen.
You should have the permission to do so, I believe.
Yeah. Just a second, it's coming.
Yes. Do you now see the screen?
Yes, it's there. You can go.
Thank you very much, Rado. Thank you very much for inviting me for this conference. I think it's very good that you have initiated this event on the topic of water and antimicrobial resistance, because AMR is a global threat. My name is Maarten van Dongen. I am originally a microbiologist, and after a long career in the biotech and in the pharma industry, I decided 6 years ago to entirely focus my professional activities on adding to the global curbing of antimicrobial resistance, or in short, AMR, by initiating the network-based organization AMR Insights. Actually, AMR Insights focuses on informing, educating and connecting professionals involved in curbing antimicrobial resistance. And I will also tell you a little bit more during my presentation. AMR is what I said, is a global threat. It's a very serious problem. And this is an important publication I want to share with you. This publication appeared in February of this year in The Lancet. And actually it showed for the first time that already a few years ago in 2019, we were faced with approximately 5 million people dying because of antimicrobial resistance worldwide. This was 2019, we are now 2022, and we all know that the threat of AMR, the problem of AMR, is only escalating. If we zoom in on in more detail, then we can see that especially bacteria such as Escherichia coli, Staphylococcus and Klebsiella are the most threatening microorganisms, and the problem of AMR is especially there in sub-Saharan African countries. This does not mean that in other countries the problem is not there, and for that reason I also want to share with you the next publication, which appeared in November of this year, so very recently, also in The Lancet. It was made by the same team as the previous publication. Actually, this publication entirely focused on the European region, and so more say our region. And from this publication, it was also focusing on 2019. It could be concluded that in Europe, in the broader Europe, we were faced with almost 700,000 deaths per year related to antimicrobial resistance. So the problem is much more worse than we ever had thought of. And what I said, we know that the problem is escalating. So there is every reason to do as much as we can to add to curbing antimicrobial resistance. This is again from the last publication, where you can see that especially in countries such as Uzbekistan, Azerbaijan and Turkmenistan, the problem is by far the biggest in Europe, but also Bulgaria is facing a lot of AMR problems. And on the right hand side you can see countries such as Finland and Sweden, where the problem is very much under control. This is also because in these countries the national action plans have been implemented. But even in some countries where the action plan has been implemented, such as Russia, the problem may still be there. So having a national action plan is obviously very good, but it is not the solution only. I would like also to zoom in on how AMR arises and also focusing on the role of water and soil. Because of this symposium, we're talking about AMR, water, environment, and we all know that AMR is a problem in wastewater and in soil. And actually, in short, we know that antibiotics are being used for veterinary use and livestock. For companion animals, we know that there's also an inappropriate disposal of antimicrobials. Antimicrobials are used in aquaculture and also, of course, in human healthcare. And there's also the waste of antimicrobials because of the wastewater in hospitals, but also of manufacturing plants. And ultimately, we as human beings do suffer from all this problem because patients cannot be treated effectively, antibiotics do not work, and people may simply die. That is in short the problem we are facing. And as you can see on this slide, the expected global manufacturing of antibiotics will only increase for the coming years. So we will be faced with increasing amounts of antibiotics becoming available on the earth, so to say. When you talk about curbing antimicrobial resistance, fighting antimicrobial resistance, there are many different ways to combat AMR, and including better prevention of diseases, infectious diseases, better antibiotic stewardship, improved diagnostics. We do need novel antibiotics, but of course, also related to today's topic, today's event, we should also have much more efforts on reducing the reduction of antimicrobials in wastewater. But there's more. And because of this important key strategy, AMR Insights focuses also on the professionals involved in it. What you can see in this slide are the professionals we focus on a day-to-day basis. So we work with medical doctors in hospitals, we work for people in the food sector, we work for people in the animal health sector, but of course we also work with people who are involved in the environmental sector. People working in environments in the different countries, and I will also tell you later on what we do to involve these people and what we do also to fight AMR, antimicrobial resistance. One of the ways we think we can add to curbing antimicrobial resistance in the environment is by making a much better overview of available technologies. So for that reason, we have decided already a few years ago to build a database with technologies which can be used in the water and in the environmental sectors to not only to reduce antibiotics from wastewater, but also to measure antibiotics in wastewater, but also to identify resistant bacteria and also to remove resistant bacteria, because all these elements are needed to solve the problem of AMR in water. And this is a growing database with technology pages. Here you can see an example of such a technology page. This is a Dutch company, Nijers Industries in the Netherlands. And you can see that this technology page says something about the technology, the advantages, the specifications, of course the address, the contact data, photos, a short video. And you are invited also, if you have technologies, to make use of this, to build your own technology page, such that you can be found globally. We also did build a filter, such that you can easily search and in the database. And here you can see the same filter. You can see the many different ways you can search. You can and this filter is in fact a very sophisticated way to effectively search to the proper technologies in the database. We also did realize as AMR Insights that we are a small network-based organization and that we do need also in the environmental and water sector professionals in the different countries, because these professionals are important to feed us with information, but also are important to, well, to share the information we are generating. So we did build a ambassador network now of about 480 ambassadors, and these include also professionals in the environmental sector, in the water and wastewater, in many different countries, now about 60 countries. And interestingly, this is a bottom-up initiative where also ambassadors join forces to write publications, including publications about AMR in wastewater. And we also did start clinical studies and other projects. And I'm telling this because this ambassador network was in fact also the beginning of another interesting development, which was the Dutch consortium Antibiotics and Pharmaceutical Residue from Wastewater. And this consortium was set up by 3 ambassadors, including myself, but also 2 other ambassadors. And they, about 2.5 years ago, decided to build a consortium, a Dutch consortium of a public-private consortium of companies, academia, hospitals, which were all having, one thing in common, that they were very much, encouraged by joining forces to solve the problem of AMR in water, in wastewater. So we initiated this consortium, and as you can see here, we are now having about 28 organizations. We focus on wastewater production sites, hospitals, healthcare institutions, manufacturing plants. And we look at water treatment plants, surface water. And we started in the Netherlands, but we obviously also are growing now to other European countries. We would be very much interested to also become active in Bulgaria, but also worldwide. And as an example, we are currently, at the request of the Dutch government, investigating and exploring possibilities to become active in India, especially in 2 states in India, in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. Why? Because there are many manufacturing plants there where antibiotics are being produced, so AMR in wastewater is really a concern in India. But what I said, we also would love to become more active in countries such as Bulgaria. This is the current consortium, where you can see pharmaceutical companies, but also many water technology companies. The Netherlands does have a lot of our companies involved in removing antibiotics from wastewater, filtering, inactivation processes. There's a lot to gain, and but also universities are involved. So in fact, we provide off-the-shelf technologies, but also innovation power to especially research and develop novel and also more affordable technologies in order also to implement these technologies in the low and middle income countries. So we also decided a few years ago that it would make sense to also come to a white paper. And so we did write a white paper on the whole problem of, what are the challenges when you talk about removing antibiotics and pharmaceutical residues in water? And how should this be tackled? And I'm most happy to share this white paper also with you. I mean, you can easily download it. And we also did a sort of a case study in the Netherlands where we just investigated what is now the problem in the Netherlands. What do we know in the Netherlands? This study was also paid by the Dutch government because they were very eager also to have a much better understanding of the problem of AMR in wastewater in the Netherlands. And we came to some data I would like to share with you in this presentation. This is about the Netherlands. And is that there's a sort of use of about 3,500 tons of medical products in the Netherlands. And so we have about 2,000 active pharmaceutical substances on the market, and only 80, so only 4% of these have been followed by the Dutch water boards. So we currently are only aware of a very, very small percentage of all these different pharmaceutical products which are being which appear in water. And we also know that, well, many of these pharmaceutical products do leave the body unchanged. So you use your medical products and then they are simply, well, they leave you the body unchanged via the urine and via the, so they come in the environment. And if you look at the top 5 of these pharmaceutical products, then these were especially a painkiller, diclofenac, but also 3 antibiotics, azithromycin, clarithromycin, and sulfamethoxazole. So these are the most problematic compounds appearing in Dutch waters. And this does not even include the over-the-counter sales and veterinary use. So it is an underestimation of the actual problem in the Netherlands. And it was clear that we do need much more insights in what is now actually appearing in Dutch waters and how can you also reduce these levels in wastewater. And so there was also, because of the study, an increasing awareness and a need of urgency. And we also concluded that the role of water in the spreading of AMR is insufficiently recognized. We have an idea, but it is not yet well quantified. It is not yet fully qualified. There's no systematic monitoring. And we do need a much better understanding where we just measure, monitor, report, and also well improve policies in order to get a much better grip on this problem. And that we also do need a much better interdisciplinary cooperation between hospitals, the water sector, the pharmaceutical sector in a structural way. And as a consortium, we also would like to play a role there. Well, the problem is not only about antibiotics, because if you have a hospital or if you have a manufacturing plant and they may release discharge antibiotics in wastewater, these antibiotics may give rise to resistant bacteria. These bacteria, again, well, have plasmids that can be released and can also be distributed or spread via wastewater. So you're talking about genetic materials, you're talking about resistant pathogenic bacteria, but also about offspring of these bacteria, and of course about the pharmaceutical products themselves. There's another, I'm coming to an end of my presentation. One of the main challenges when talking about, well, where to start when reducing antibiotics in wastewater is, what do you measure? Now, first of all, is how do you measure and what do you want to measure? But also, if you are able to measure, and that's not that easy, what levels should you strive for? What are acceptable levels? Should you strive to 0? And I'm very valuable, I think a very valuable contribution in this respect was done by the AMR Industry Alliance in collaboration with the Stockholm Institute, International Water Institute, because they, especially the AMR Industry Alliance in their working groups on AMR, started thinking about the concept of the PNEC values. And PNEC is the predicted no effect concentrations. And actually they came up with 2 values, the environmental PNEC values, but also the resistance PNEC values. And especially the environmental PNEC values give an idea what concentrations in water, in wastewater, in environmental water and surface water are acceptable in order to avoid any environmental effects. So these PNEC values will help us to reduce the levels in wastewater to acceptable levels. So this is an important step forward, and I do very much appreciate the work done by the AMR Industry Alliance and also by the Stockholm International Water Institute. And I also would like to mention the white paper they have written on this topic, and I also would like to mention the RAMP platform. And I definitely recommend you also to download this white paper, and I'm also happy to share it with you. I can send it to you because this white paper gives a very solid overview of what is involved when you start talking about well, reducing antimicrobials in wastewater, but how should you tackle this, and what key stakeholders are involved? It's not only about the hospitals, it's not only about the manufacturing plants. You're dealing with governments, you're dealing with technology providers, you're dealing with well, the end users. So it is I can definitely recommend this white paper. I'm coming to an end of my presentation. I have one other slide I would like to share with you. Is that this is an example also in the Netherlands. That is what's called the Water Campus Innovation Chain. And this is something which I think is a very elegant solution, because this innovation chain also illustrates how stakeholders can and should and must collaborate in order to come to a sort of a very sustainable self-reinforcing collaboration, where educators, investigators, validators, testers, laboratories, application centers, demonstration sites, but also, of course, the purification plants, hospitals, all these stakeholders are effectively working together. And as a Dutch consortium, Antibiotics from Wastewater, we would like to build these innovation chains and be of help, not only in the Netherlands but also in European countries and also countries outside Europe. I'm coming to an end of my presentation. I want to thank you for once again for inviting me for this very important symposium, and I'm most happy to answer any questions after this. Or if you have any questions, or if you would like to make use of the technology database, do send us an email. You can also have your own technology page. If you would like to know more about the Dutch consortium Antibiotics from Wastewater, just let me know. If you want to have the white papers, I can send you the downloads. And of course, I'm also most happy to take any questions. Thank you very much for your listening.
Thank you very much for your time and insights. I think your presentation, your speech came quite timely for introducing a number of interrelated topics. I would allow myself, having the privilege of commanding my microphone, to ask you one rather broad question. I believe that one of the reasons why AMR is a huge risk is its complexity, and the fact that it is not so easy to prioritize and to address it with a single silver bullet. In my mind, I was comparing this with, for example, the risk of an asteroid hitting the Earth. I believe that the global community, scientific, business, policymakers, etc., are somehow understanding that we have to be ready to fire something against something that is coming. Some months ago, there was a first trial, I think successful, etc. And the Americans, the Chinese, and everyone would agree that something needs to be done. I believe AMR is a more difficult story. That's a very personal thing. My question to you, Maarten, is the following. From the different stakeholders that you mentioned, and I was positively impressed that you outlined some of your initiatives as a bottom-up approach. My question is the following. Do you believe that, contrary to other global problems, in the case of tackling AMR, it could be actually big business that could be instrumental in resolving this issue? And I'm asking you this because I believe that other potential stakeholders and drivers, like consumer sentiments, like enlightened policymakers, somehow I believe they are not in a good position to address this situation because of its complexity. So, long story short, which stakeholders do you see playing a decisive role in tackling this problem, and particular emphasis on corporate? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for this question. Excellent question. AMR is a complex global challenge, so to say, problem. Sometimes also rightfully compared to the climate change problem. There are many stakeholders involved. There is not one single solution, and we can only effectively tackle AMR by focusing on different key strategies to curb AMR, like one of my slides already showed. So new antimicrobials, better tackling of AMR in wastewater, better stewardship also in the veterinary sector, and I can go on for that. So there are different key strategies, and in all these key strategies, innovation plays a major role. So we do need novel technologies, novel innovations, and innovation also means economic challenges, economic benefits. So I think that's the interesting part of AMR. We can boost innovation. We have to boost innovation, but as a result, there will be economic growth. There can be economic growth, and also companies, corporates will benefit from that. And I think that's also that is also an interesting driver to focus on curbing, on tackling AMR, because it also will give rise to economic growth in that respect. When we talk about novel diagnostics, as an example, we do need novel diagnostics, fast, affordable. There's enormous amount of startup companies involved in developing novel techniques for novel diagnostics. And some of these companies will survive and will also become successful at a global scale. And this is also the economic benefit of it. So an excellent question and a rightful point.
Thank you. I take your answer as a rather yes, because innovation is a critical component of the solution, and a big part of that innovation could or should come from corporate business research and commercialization. Thank you for that. One final question on my side. I think most of us will remember the figure of almost 5 million people in the beginning of your presentation, and this is what is scary. And I mean, if I could be a bit cynical, probably that figure could help us become a bit more aware of the risk. My question to you is the following. If we compare it to climate change, as you did a minute ago, I believe that a lot of people, even from the scientific community, believe that the solution to climate change is not the reduced emissions, but rather technologies like reflecting back the light or carbon capture and things like that. So why bother with reducing emissions? Why not focus on getting geoengineering solutions and resolve the whole issue once and forever? Are you afraid, or do you think actually there is some common sense in this direction, that the actual solution to AMR problem is just find new antibiotics, don't bother that much about the resistant to existing ones?
Yeah, again, an excellent question. I see many people who believe that, developing novel antibiotics would solve the problem. And that is simply not the case. It's very important that you ask this question because also when developing new antibiotics, we know that bacteria will become resistant also against these new antibiotics. So we will simply not solve the problem by developing and marketing novel antibiotics only. We must continue to focus on all the different key strategies, like reducing antibiotics in wastewater, what I said, the novel diagnostics, better stewardship, better prevention of infectious diseases. We should work on much more vaccination of people, because vaccination means that people, that there will be less infectious diseases and less use of antibiotics. So we must continue to focus on all these different key strategies and not only on developing and marketing novel antibiotics. And in addition, it's important to say that it is increasingly difficult to also to develop novel antibiotics. I mean, the golden ages have been there in the 60s and 70s of the previous century. But nowadays it's extremely difficult. It is costly, difficult, and it is very difficult also to come with, well, new antibiotics that may be better than the existing ones. So it is it is not that easy, and it is extremely costly. We, as an example, we have initiated last year in the new AMR Action Fund. This fund has $1 billion, and it hopes to add to 2, hopefully 3 new antibiotics in a number of years. So provided these indeed reach the market. So it is we definitely should not only focus on this solution.
Thanks a lot. I think your answer is clear no. I mean, it's it's one out of your 6 boxes in the structure of solutions, but definitely one that we should solely rely on. Thanks a lot, Maarten. With water and biotechnologies, we are trying to gradually build a community, or a network is probably a better word, of people who work on different topics, but the common denominator being that these are somehow combining the biotechnological and the water aspects, and AMR is a genuine topic that combines these two. So it's a pleasure to get a good group of people today, and some of the insights that you shared with us as materials, as links, and most importantly, as getting to know you personally through our event today has been useful, and I hope we can stay in touch and use your insights going forward. Much appreciated, Maarten.
Thank you very much.